Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Contiki Travel Talks. This is the second in our series of 4 travel talks in our virtual event series. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Adam Armstrong. I'm the new CEO of Contiki Holidays, and I'm hosting today's event here in Geneva, Switzerland. It's the end of the day here. The office is empty. And this is, just so you know, the first time I've hosted a virtual panel discussion, so please bear with me. We've got a team of Contiki crew behind us, behind the scenes, making all of this work for us tonight. So let's get on with things. If you are obsessed with travel as much as we are here at Contiki, then the only thing that comes close to traveling this year when we haven't been traveling is talking about it. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to get pumped up and talking about what we're going to do, how we're going to travel in 2021, which is just around the corner. To help me, we've invited some of the brightest and best travel minds in the business to talk about our favorite topic, travel. But before I introduce the panel, just a couple of housekeeping rules and pointers. So everyone except from me and the 3 panelists are on mute. And we can't see you. So you'll be able to see us, but we won't be able to see or hear you. If you've got any questions along the way, though, then please feel free to type them into the chat. And we've got someone who's going to collect them and ping them to me during the course of the talk, questions for me or for any of the panelists. And we'll save some time for them at the end. We expect to run for about 45 minutes, so we'll have you back into the real world on the hour. Okay, so today we're going to focus on the big topic, which is the future of travel. And I guess firstly, I should say, I and Contiki, we very firmly and strongly believe in the future of travel. There is a future of travel, and travel does have a great future. Most of us here in Contiki, and in fact most of us in the world, I guess, are desperate to travel again. Some of us have, already taken the walk to the park or the shops, and that's about as far as we've been this year. We've got a saying at Contiki that travel makes better humans, and we all want to be better humans by going out and seeing the world again. We get so much from our exposure to different people and traditions and foods and landscapes and different shopping and so on and so on. And 2020 was the first time really in our lifetimes that we've been so comprehensively restricted from traveling. Probably the last time there was such a decline in travel was after September the 11th. But the distinction then was we could still travel, borders were open, people just didn't want to, they were less comfortable. Right now the borders are closed, there's restrictions, and we can't travel even though we want to. But we're ready to go back, and especially the demographic of Contiki, the 18 to 35-year-old age group, desperate to go back and travel. All the surveys tell us that the 18 to 35-year-old group will return to travel quickest. And all the sales here at Contiki have certainly demonstrated, certainly the last couple of weeks when we had our cyber weekend sale, demonstrate there are people out there ready to make their booking for 2021. There's so much pent-up demand. And of course now we've got better and quicker testing for the virus, and we've got 3 vaccines, a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. And of course the UK, when they're not talking about Brexit, they're getting on with starting to vaccinate their population. So yeah, firstly, travel does of course have a future, and secondly, travel plays a huge part in the world, not just for us as humans and making better humans, but it's a huge employment for millions and millions of people. The WTTC, the World Travel and Tourism Council, estimates that about roughly 143 million people from the travel industry are now out of work because of the pandemic. Put it into perspective, that's the population of the UK plus France plus Switzerland, where I am today. 143 million people out of work at the moment. Those people are desperate to get back to work, and they're desperate to get back and provide great travel experiences for the billions of people that travel every year. We all, of course, craving face-to-face, people-to-people interaction after living in the virtual world for so long this year. Thirdly, I guess, so yes, we're going to travel again. We want to travel again, and the industry wants to wants to accommodate us again and take us on amazing experiences. But thirdly, travel will probably look, taste, smell, sound, and feel a bit different in the years to come. We know that, we appreciate that. The way we think about and consume travel going forward won't be the same. And when I think of travel in the future for myself, I think about business travel first of all. There'll be less business travel. We can meet virtually like this, so there's less of a need to get on a plane and go and sit in a room together. More domestic travel. I certainly traveled more domestically than ever before, as the border closures, international border closures, have made us look at our own backyards and actually realize that there's plenty to do close to home. More nature-based travel, so getting away from cities, getting away from crowds, for some real disconnection from the buzz of normal life if you live in the city. Attacking the things on your bucket list. So we've all got them. We've all got a list of things we want to do, and we keep putting them off. Other stuff comes up, work, family, and so on. I think we'll probably see people rushing to do those things that they've always wanted to, but haven't quite been able to get to yet. Maybe some of us will go on longer trips. Maybe some of us will go on shorter trips. So lots of changes in the way we approach travel. And overall, I think not taking travel for granted quite so much as perhaps we did in the past, getting more from travel. And on that note of getting more from travel, not taking it for granted, in the last couple of months, we ran a great campaign as we start looking towards traveling again. And we heard news about vaccines and borders are potentially opening up. We ran a great campaign called Make Travel Count. And we asked our travelers to make a pledge to us online, tell us what they're going to do, what they want to do most when they travel in 2021. And one of the most consistent trends in the pledges was a desire to travel better. So more conscious, sustainable, and thoughtful travel, leaving places better than you found them, reducing our carbon footprint when we travel, a lot more interest in smaller second cities and more the desire to travel to more remote destinations. And it's all of those trends, those desires, those pledges that led us to this talk tonight. And that's what we're going to talk about. That's what we're going to focus on today. We're going to try and arm you with some ideas, some knowledge to make more sustainable travel decisions for the future. So let's get stuck in. And to help me, I have a team of 3 panelists. So I will invite our 3 panelists to switch on their webcams and switch on their audio so that we can see them all in their glory, in their bedrooms, lounges, kitchen around the world. So let me introduce you to our 3 panelists who have very happily agreed to come and join us tonight. Firstly, let's go to Hege. I think you're in New York. Maybe tell us where you are, what you're doing, and where was the last place you traveled to before lockdown?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, hi, everybody. I'm in New York, actually, or our office is in New York, but I am in Connecticut. So I'm at home in my bedroom/office with the family at home. So yeah, the part of the situation that we all experienced for 9 months. But yeah, I work for Visit Norway, for Innovation Norway, which is the government entity for trade and industries. And I'm responsible for the promotion of Norway as a tourist destination in North America. So we cover all aspects of travel, trade, and consumer marketing, and all the work that we do to help highlight the advantages of traveling to Norway. And I actually I was so lucky that I went home because I'm from Northern Norway. And I've been in the US for over 20 years. So I was lucky enough to visit my family in Northern Norway right before the lockdown. And then 3 days in Berlin, which was amazing. And then I went home, went to the office one day, and then we closed down. So.
Thanks, Hege. And whereabouts in Northern Norway are you from?
Tromsø.
I've been to Tromsø a couple of times. One of my favorite countries, Norway, from when I was growing up in the UK. Thanks, Hege. And let's introduce Carmen. Carmen,
Hi,
what's your name, where you come from, and where was the last place you travelled to?
So my name is Carmen. I'm a travel photographer. I have lived in New Zealand for the last 8 years, and funnily enough, I'm decided to move back to my home country, Austria, just in time for lockdown. I literally got the keys to my new and empty apartment half a day before they announced a full lockdown, which was supposed to last for a week, but obviously we're kind of still in and out of it. That was back in March. So I had half a day to furnish and just get all my things, my ducks in a row to move into this new place. And the place I traveled to before actually was Iceland. But yeah, I'm a travel photographer. It's my mission to create more than I consume. It's sort of my tagline, and I try and incorporate notions of sustainability in my work, but also in the way I speak about my work and the places I go.
And whereabouts are you in Austria, Carmen?
Right in Austria, staying with my family. I actually live in Innsbruck, which is 2 hours from here.
Innsbruck. We have a Contiki hotel not far from Innsbruck. So hello to my neighbour.
Yeah, it's so stunning.
Okay, thank you. And over to Elena, last but not by no means least, where are you, and where was the last place you travelled to before lockdown?
Yeah, so thank you for having us over. And I am currently in Mallorca in Spain. Calling from there. We're generating travel from here, from the island. So it's really exciting times. And the co-founder of Authenticities, we do social impact experiences. We co-design with nonprofits in cities around the world. And we really have about 150 partners that we run those experiences with. And recently, we're also expanding a bit to doing in more rural areas. And the last trip I did was actually to Vienna and Salzburg. So I'm a big fan of Austria, and we do quite a bit of business there. So I was there on a conference about experience design and how to make experience and social impact matter as we travel.
Cool. Nice city, Vienna, just down the road. So Elena, we'll start with a sort of question for you because, well, firstly because you're top of the list of my questions, but also because you do a little bit of work with Contiki. So we do an experience with you in San Sebastian, I believe. And I've been practicing the name, how to pronounce the name of your company all afternoon. So let's see if I can get it right. Authenticities. Well, is that correct? So what was the main inspiration behind Authenticities, and how have you seen city-based experiences evolve over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so I mean, so it's authenticity with the city kind of as a wordplay there. Basically, I really like the whole basis of Authenticities was that people really are good and they want to travel differently. And I saw in developing countries, I grew up in Central America. I'm half Costa Rican, and I grew up in El Salvador. And I was seeing a lot of people coming over to do volunteer work and nonprofit work while they were in developing countries, but there was not so much of that happening in developed country cities. And these are challenges that we share across all the cities, like homelessness, creating jobs for immigrants, gender equality, environmental impact. These are challenges that we have throughout cities. So I found that there was an opportunity there to create something within cities that people could relate to more and could do back, and also be part of the story of what's happening there, especially cities that you go to more than once. So we're based in Barcelona, and people fall in love with the city and they come 1, 2, 3 times. And once you've done the main sites, you really want to be part of the story, and you start getting more involved in like, what are some of the challenges that are here? What's going on? So we found that to be a great start, starting with the sea, for example, in our case, right? We're a city that has the sea, and people are doing paddle surfing there, but why not be part of the story of cleaning up the beach, making it fun? We're also like fishing plastic out of the sea, and just being part of the whole ecosystem and understanding how when you are in one place, you're really part of everywhere. So that's a little bit the inspiration, and it quickly caught on. We started co-designing different types of experiences in cities, mainly in Europe. We started, and in 2017-18, we started expanding to Latin America as well. Cities there, and also some like second cities, because in Latin America, travel is a bit different. And the experience that we are running with Contiki is called Eat One, Feed One. So basically, we already go to very local pinchos places that are all like, so you understand everything from where the product is sourced, you listen to the stories of the people that are working in those restaurants, but also every time you eat, we're also donating to a soup kitchen that is close by. So it's a way to kind of be part of that conversation and give back with that nonprofit that we are there. And we actually make this part of the experience itself, so that it's not something that's like, oh, we just donate. You know, we actually talk about it, we share, we go visit, we pass by. So people actually like get to see other streets and what life goes on in the city that sometimes is behind closed doors to those that are just traveling through.
So I guess in summary, so you can go to a city and see all the main sites as normal, Barcelona, the Sagrada, the Familia, but this is adding another kind of behind the scenes perhaps layer to a city that people won't necessarily get access to otherwise. No, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, and
so,
give back.
and gives back to the local community. Speaking of which, Carmen, you travel a lot. Had a look at your Instagram profile this week. So how do you make sure that when you're traveling, you create more where you go than you consume?
I mean, to be honest, I can't always consume fully consciously or create more, as you said, because sometimes it's a matter of just a job and I don't have say in the logistics and such of it. But there's always some things that I can do no matter what kind of trip I'm going to. So something that I've started a few years ago and that's really easy to do is offset carbon for all my flights, especially considering I used to live in New Zealand. So there have been a lot of hours on long haul flights in the past few years. It's also one of the reasons actually I moved back to Europe, is to travel more locally and not be on a plane so much anymore. So that was the biggest decision in me changing countries. And I can make decisions such as the way I eat. I mean, we all know that even though it's not a very popular topic often to talk about, or a very political topic, the food that we consume has the biggest impact on the way that we damage or don't our environment. So I can choose to not eat meat, I can choose to eat locally, I can choose to support locals, full stop. And then there's the little things like, you know, not carrying or not consuming too much plastic. I always have a filter water bottle, so even if I go to places like Namibia, I don't have to, where you can't drink tap water, I don't have to buy water bottles. And there is things that you can do on an everyday basis at home that you can just carry on overseas. I think sometimes we get into this mindset of like, when we travel, we are on a holiday, so we treat ourselves. So, you know, we become a different, our identity changes in a way, or like our consumerism changes, but we can really adapt. We can also shop locally. We don't have to abandon those habits that we have formed at home in the new places that we go.
You mentioned carbon offsetting. It's something that we're looking at, Contiki and our parent companies looking at. Is it in your experience, is it easy to offset your flights, for example? I lived in Australia for last 16 years and traveled many thousands, hundreds of thousands of miles over those years. And it wasn't obvious to be able to do that when booking a flight.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that every airline had a really transparent and genuine way of doing it, just by means of buying your plane or buying your flight ticket, which some of them do. But then there is organizations such one is called the Gold Standard, which has been founded, I think, by the WWF, and it's actually super affordable. It's a really easy way to you just literally put in where you flew and you pay a few bucks, and that's about it. I mean, it's really simple things like this. You know, for example, when you buy photography prints on my website, trees get planted for every order. It's little things that I think every company, no matter in which realm in the tourism industry and any industry in general you are, that you can implement just to give back.
Yeah, we did the calculation here this year that it's about a couple of dollars a day for a guest per person per day on a to carbon offset. It's certainly something we're looking at doing in the future. Let's go up to Norway for a minute then and check in with Hege. Innovation Norway is all about building awareness and therefore increasing tourism to the great country of Norway. So how do you achieve growth on one hand in a sustainable way in the other?
And that's a very good question, but we are fortunate enough that the government of Norway has mandated a pretty active sustainability strategy. And we've had this for many, many years. We work with the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. We have implemented them into our overall, like all through sectors and industries. Everything we do needs to sort of adhere to those goals in one way or another. And we also started many years ago, as Norway's been very popular over the last few years, and we have tiny little communities. Our biggest city, our capital, has like 500, 600,000, and our second biggest city has 300,000 people. And then all these tiny little communities all over Norway. And when thousands of people come at one time, it could feel crowded. It's not over, we don't have over tourism per se as Barcelona have or others, but for those locals that suddenly get sort of overcome with a lot of people at one time, because the seasonality in Norway is so that most of the traffic is in the summer. We started many years ago to look into how can we develop the communities, how can the communities and the people themselves be part of driving change. So we started collaborating with the Global Sustainable Tourism Council for a destination standard that we've had now for 10 years. So we certified through GSTC to develop destinations and communities themselves where they can interact with the whole ecosystem in a community, from the locals, from smaller businesses to corporates to local governments. Everybody can be a part of driving change in their own communities, their own cities, and so forth. And they have to follow a certain criteria, and I think there's like 108 indicators and 40-something criteria to develop their own destinations. And in that way, you secure that the locals are part of it. You know, they are driving the change. It's a bottom-up process, and it's not something that's put on top of people. So when we then welcome, because we welcome everybody to come and see us, but the option for people that come to Norway now to choose sustainable is much easier, you know, because we know that the destinations are developing. They are using their local products. Restaurants and hotels are using food and other products that are locally made or produced nearby. So we know that we can offer products, and we as marketers can also tell a story that rings true. It's an authentic story. You know, you come to Norway and you can really experience the products, the cultures, and the history, and buy local, and buy the local cheese that's, you know, served at your restaurant is produced at the farm just up the hill. You know, so it's we're trying to develop our destination as a good place to live. It's a good place to visit. So it is sort of a locals first, and then come see us and be a part of this journey together with us.
Have you managed to disperse the rise in tourist visits to Norway? Have you managed to disperse them around the country?
So yeah, that's our. So we changed a few years ago, because as with everything else, and in Instagram of our world, we're blessed with beautiful nature, and there's all these scenic, gorgeous viewpoints that you can climb up to or visit and take phenomenal photos and share on Instagram. So those became crowded. So what we decided to do is, like, why don't we take all these pictures to the next fjord over, or these undiscovered gems, because there's tons of them in Norway. So we stopped sort of promoting, or not stop, but limit promoting of the popular places, and rather show these hidden gems and tell an attractive story of that. And all these things, and I think that's more important now than ever, is visit off season, and then you can have all this for yourself, and then you can really meet the locals. So you can get a part of the history. You can partake in that local music festival that way, in a tiny little island off the coast of northern Norway, where the locals are, and then you can really be a part of that society. So it's all about the storytelling and the aspect that we can sort of convey to the audience, that you don't have to go to the most popular places in the most popular times of year. It's equal, just put on a jacket and you come in fall or in spring, and then it's much more of a pleasant experience for everybody.
And certainly the trend around COVID, one of the trends is to encourage people to get outside more and reconnect with nature. That kind of ticks the box, big box for Norway, I guess. You think that's a good thing for tourism to Norway? Absolutely.
We are, as I said, also we're blessed. We have 5 million people in Norway, and we have a long country with lots of space. So that having that space in common, if you're talking about second cities or visiting even a city in Norway is small, you know. So if you come and see us, and the infrastructure is really good, because we build for the locals. As I said, we have a very active policy that we want people to live in the rural areas. So we will have a ferry or a underwater tunnel system out to an island where there's 23 people living, you know, so you can actually get around by using local transportation. Or we have 10,000 charging stations for electrical vehicles, so you can actually travel pretty sustainable all around the country. And I think that getting that access to space and feeling good about what you're doing, you know, that you're traveling in a sustainable manner, and that you can actually meet the locals when they're ready to greet you, you know, and they have something to offer. So yeah, I think we and other destinations that can offer a little bit more or less crowded experience, unique, authentic experiences. I think that authenticity of feeling connected to a place or a culture or a history, that when we're going through all these things, when we're sitting at home or working in our bedrooms, you know, getting out there and meeting people on a real level, on a sort of an authentic, closer level, I think that will be hugely valuable.
Yeah, so certainly that's the message that's coming through in all the chatter from our past passengers, past guests. Elena, if we switch continents and go to Vietnam, you've been involved in a project with Bloom Micro Ventures. It's a great example where small innovations make a very big difference to local people's livelihoods. Could you tell us a bit more about that project and how travelers get involved in that project?
Yeah, that was how I got involved in the travel industry. Other than being a traveler, I was really I come from development and working in communities, and basically we were two things can go together that don't seem logical at first. And we had seen a big opportunity in microfinance and doing microloans in developing countries especially for women, businesses and entrepreneurs there. But we really wanted to delink it from banking, and that's where we saw travel as an opportunity for that. So we started developing experiences where people could come, and it would be really like an exchange between the traveler and those local families about what they were doing, how they were doing them, moving people from the normal places in Hanoi to areas that actually had even been closed post-war. So we actually, at the beginning, we even had a lot of Vietnamese families coming to visit schools because they hadn't been to areas like Suc Son back when we started in 2009, 2010. And the idea was really just how can we look at what these families are doing there, how can we give microloans to them and then make a travel connection through that so that it creates a very seamless connection and a great way for people to get to know other parts of Vietnam while helping. And of course, I think when we do this type of innovations, it's very important to keep in mind, you know, what would happen if we were not there. So we were very conscious of making sure that all the businesses that they were doing were not connected to tourism. So for example, they were not given money to like do souvenirs or anything else that was selling, because you have to be aware if I disappear tomorrow or if we cannot travel tomorrow, which is something that has become evident now, how much of a dependency have I created in a community to us being there, right? So they were actually buying chickens and doing other types of things. And this is something that we've definitely translated and to what we're doing also in the cities, creating this different challenges and seeing what's happening there and seeing how that connection can help. But what's been great in Vietnam is that we saw the two local women are now running the project. We were very early on featured in Lonely Planet, so we had we never really had to do much marketing. We already had visitors coming from the beginning, and it was really like one of the first social impact experiences out there that created this connection. So it was really great. And now the locals have even created like their own experiences. So they now have like a rural hotel overnight stay in this very remote area in Vietnam, which is really great, and also for educational purposes, which is also different tangents that where like what you do is just a small seed to really what can happen. And ironically was called Bloom, and it really did bloom into like now like 15 years of different things happening and taking life of its own.
And has it bloomed to a sustainable level? It's not, you know, it's clearly popular, but you can manage so that the capacity so that it's not making too much of an impact on the local environment, local people.
Yeah, so well, that was one. So we were always weighing like what is the impact, you know. So when this happened, that we were featured, for example, in Lonely Planet, and a lot of people wanted to come, we just opened another operation in a neighboring city to make sure that we were not overloading this very small communities, as I'm telling you, even that were closed off of the map. So that all those learnings are things that we take into account, because I think it's like, yes, growth can bring more support in this case, but to what cost? And we will always benefit the cost. We will always benefit the community rather than bringing in, let's say, more travelers, more tourists to that. And I think there's always like a win-win there that can happen. That's one of our themes. How can you have the triple win for the locals, for the traveler, and also for the world?
Are there key requirements you look for when you're setting up and curating new activities like that?
Yeah, so I mean, through the years we've been developing. I mean, Hege was talking about the SDGs, so that's something we've evolved to. At the beginning, when I started, there were no SDGs to go to, so we created our own impact measurements. We're also a certified B Corp, one of the first in travel in Europe. And even though we're a small-ish company, I've really tried to like keep it to the standards, because I think there's some things that we're saying, but I think having that external audit of having someone else looking at your accounts, looking at how you do governance, looking at the supply chains, and how that all really is mapped out together to be like really there for systemic change, and joining together with other organizations and companies that are also, that's also how we partner with Contiki, right, that are looking to make that a conversation and a whole long-term plan that is happening. So those criteria, we have regulated, let's say, from like the B Corp standards, but we also have been working with UNWTO for doing like SDGs, and then we have a certain set of criteria that we call the Impact XP that we measure on everything we do, and we work with the local nonprofits to be able to design that accordingly. So, and it's something that's ever evolving, and we're also looking, because what's interesting is like, yeah, we're going to have all these measurements, but then it's only for us in the travel industry, but we want to make sure that that translates to the traveler, because our ultimate goal is for them to be part of the conversation, and that we understand how we can all make a change. Like Carmen was saying, you know, every small thing makes a difference. So we want the traveler to really have that mind shift when they come with us, and not have it just be like one more certification that you have that no one knows what it means.
Yeah, it all adds up over billions of travelers. So one small action from one person collectively by 3 or 4 billion people all really adds up. Carmen, if we could move to you for a moment. You've got a massive following on Instagram, 162,000 followers. Have you noticed anything and they're clearly a very highly engaged group. Have you noticed in the chatter, in the discussion, in the comments from your followers this year, in any change in their demands and questions around travel and their intent for travel during the last couple of months? What are they saying?
Yeah, I have noticed an incremental change, to be honest, over the last few years already, to travel, but do so in a sustainable way, or at least to close the gap, you know, that gap that we talk about in sustainability, of like not just thinking about what happens to you, but also how you can give back and how you can close the circle and perhaps leave the place in a better way. While I have noticed that change, I have also, like, you know, they're asking for sustainable travel brands, or perhaps destinations they can travel to that offer more sustainable activities, or perhaps offer more authenticity, so are not too crowded, not too fake in a way. Sustainable clothing brands, beauty brands, the cooking, all these kind of things they're asking for. But what's also really obvious to me is that the supply doesn't really match the demand, and a lot of the time it isn't only because it is unattainable. Of course, like conscious consumption comes often at a higher price tag, doesn't have to, but very often so. But it also, there's a lot of greenwashing, and I think it is extremely hard for a consumer to tell apart what is an authentic way, where is my money being put to like a better cause, or where am I just putting my money back into the same old cycle, but it's only there to make me feel better. So I think the way that sustainability is pronounced and the sustainability is advocated for from brands is lacking a certain standard in a sense, because it is really hard to tell apart greenwashing from just everyday consumerism. And that is really difficult because people want to make the change. They just often, first of all, don't know how to start, and they don't know whether it's even impactful. And at the end of the day, they need to see like action being taken from the way they or where they put their dollar.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because everyone can say that they're being sustainable, but it's very difficult for the consumer, for the traveller, to tell if it's genuine or not. And I'm sure the vast majority of cases it is. Is there anywhere where people can go to check whether the claims being made are legitimate?
There are for certain industries. So in the fashion world, there's apps. That one is called Good For, where people can just download an app, put a brand in, or scan a product, and they can see if it's actually what it says it is. And then there's people like myself creating lists and archives where people can go to and just sort of click themselves through when they're looking for a certain product. In the travel industry, it's a little less. It's a lot more complicated per se, because sustainable travel, what does it really mean? For me, it means supporting locally and actually, as Hege said, feeding from the bottom up and actually understanding that as community is only then sustainable when it's being looked after for the long term and when it can grow within itself as opposed to just from outside sources. So it's a difficult way. I wish there were more standards like there are in Norway with other countries, that travel providers just have to meet a certain standard to then be called sustainable. But with airlines, I mean, every part of the industry really is lacking that transparency. So it's hard. There is not one resource that can be kind of like looked for right now.
I think it's a really good point. Yeah, there is a lack of a global set of standards for the travel industry that we all adhere to. We're all doing great things, or many of us are doing great things. But yeah, how do you check it's legitimate? I think that's a very valid point. Hege, we've had a question from David asking, are there examples in Norway where sustainability isn't just good for the environment, but actually makes for a better tourism experience in its own right?
Yes, absolutely. The indigenous people, the Samis in the northern Norway, in Lapland, they have been operating in that area for generations, and they have the right to roam for their reindeers. They have the right to roam, to have their herds out there, and to use the landscape in a manner that has been going through their history and through generations and through traditions and means of operating that we have maintained, and they are protected. The rights to do that is protected all over the country, and we are now sort of becoming better and also promoting their lifestyle, and not the way that we see it, like the mass tourism that's coming through and they are like the Disney World, but actually meeting them on their own terms. So that's sort of a priority for us to, and for themselves to actually open up their say businesses, but it's not businesses, but their life and their services, or their lifestyle, and showcasing and talking about their traditions, why they're doing it, why they're living the way they're doing it, because they live in a traditional manner and they follow the herds throughout the seasons. And so that's one way we're trying to sort of maintain and make sure that their lifestyle is protected, and then they get to tell their story, they get to develop their own products, and not us as outsiders saying come and see them or look at them, but come and get to know them the way they want to tell their story. And I think that's one that the story that shines through in many other destinations around the world. So it's not just Norway.
And I proffer, Hege, that in many cases, those experiences are actually the ones that people remember most.
Yes.
From their holiday.
Yeah.
The most.
Because they're enriching, and they are small scale. These are not the mass tourism thing, but it is that personal touch where you really get to meet somebody and learn something, and then it's playing on your emotions, and you learn something for yourself.
I've got a question which I think is for me, from Megan, asking about the wellbeing commitment set up by Contiki. Will the COVID-19 travel bubbles be permanent for the years to come, or is it just for now? And the bubbles and the mask wearing on tour will fade in time. Or look, in short, I think the mask wearing will probably disappear. As the world gets vaccinated and gets on top of the virus, and we might continue testing. But in the longer term, yeah, I think we'll see the masks and sanitizer probably disappearing. The bubbles is an interesting concept, because we've always had bubbles. We've always on our trips, you've always travelled in a bubble effectively, with 20 to 50 people on your group. That hasn't changed. What we're saying at the moment is probably a good thing to be traveling with 20 to 50 people that you know, and you're going to the same places and eating in the same places, all with the same tour guide and so on. Probably better to do that at the moment. I'd feel safer doing that than going and doing my own thing. So I hope that answers that question, Megan. Elena, you say an important question that drives you in your work is, how can we be more authentic in the city each day? It's a great question. What's your advice on how to answer this to travelers when they're traveling in cities?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because now, I think, well, before this, but also now more so, we're really we are very aware of us within the space, within the city, right? And this personal transformation, a little bit to what Hege was speaking, when I interact with the other, what are little small things that I can do? And sometimes it's just eye contact. What value can I add here? What can I leave behind? And sometimes it's a smile, it's just eye contact, it's just acknowledging the person who's asking for money in the street, saying thank you to the bus driver. Small things like that all the time just add up and really can create differences in people's lives, and just create that connection that I think now more than ever is happening there, and create that also makes the whole thing authentic and a way to make it about persons and people, because I think that's about what travel really is about. And at some point we've lost it and we forgot that travel is really about understanding other cultures, understanding other humans, sharing soul stories. And sometimes right now you can only be part of a story by just looking at someone in the eye. And actually that's something I'm doing a lot now, with half a face covered. I'm just kind of looking at people maybe a bit scarily, and giving eye contact to everyone, and saying thank you, maybe a little bit more enthusiastic than usually to the person in the supermarket, and asking how they are, and really mean it. And I think if we can really translate that to how we travel again, instead of seeing it oh, I'm here to consume something, I'm here to be entertained, and really make it about connection and transformation and being open to being changed while you are there, we will find that really that can happen. And I think it will change completely the interaction that we have even with cities and with people when we go places,
I think it goes back to my earlier point about not taking things for granted. Once you've had something taken away from you for 6 months, you start to think a little bit more about how important it was to you. And I think we'll all emerge from the other side of this, not taking things for granted, and having that eye-to-eye contact, that people-to-people interaction. And if it's taught us one thing, is that we can't travel virtually through the medium of video calls and the internet and TV. You want to be there, you want to see other people, and you want to talk and look them in the eye and experience life outside of your bedroom or your kitchen or your front room. Carmen, a question about your photography. You use, and you've got some stunning photography. You use that to communicate and storytell to your audience. Do you see travel photography evolving with the changes this year from the pandemic? Will your photography change in 2021?
It will always evolve. I mean, it's evolved so much in the last decade already. We've moved from traditional travel photography to a much more unique look and personal look in the way people edit and the way people take photos. So I think that will always be the case. But of course, I mean, for me personally, I'm super lucky to live in the middle of the Alps. So my content will be more mountain focused, which I'm not complaining about. I do hope that it will give people a chance to discover their backyards more, not just for professionals like myself, but also just for anyone and everyone that loves taking photos and actually find that beauty within where they live. I think it is a big opportunity that we all have, because I have never traveled to a place that has been beautiful, and I really have traveled to an incredible amount of places. So I just see it evolving in a way that perhaps also companies hire more local creatives, which is an issue that has happened in the past, that a lot of the time tourism boards from one country would hire photographers from a whole different continent and fly them in, while they have photographers sitting in their own country that obviously know the place much better. So perhaps it will equal it all out a little bit. It will slow it down for sure, but that is just the way this business works. And I think being a creative, I'm never expecting too much stability. So it's just, we have to roll with what happens and explore our own backyards.
Speaking from personal experience, I've never taken so many photographs and videos in the last couple of months. I have been in isolation quite a bit over the last couple of months, but certainly my phone, the camera on my phone has been getting a lot of use, and my style has changed over the months as it's evolved. Sticking with, well, moving from photographs to film, Hege, Disney's film Frozen really put Norway on the map with the younger generations who may not have previously been aware of Norway's existence. What was your role in, what were your intentions in spearheading that marketing campaign with Frozen?
That was, I have to say, first of all, that was a lot of fun, and it was a big surprise. Actually, Disney contacted us and said they had visited Norway, they'd done a lot of research, they had sent the whole film and creative crew to Norway, and they created this movie based on a Danish story about H. H.C. Andersen. And then we got to see all this, and we saw, we recognized the fjords, the landscape. We saw the architectural from some of the castles and the state churches. We saw our traditional costumes in it. They even used the fjord horrors. Like, there was so many elements that was so true to Norway. So we saw that connection immediately, that authenticity, you know, like this is one of the best storytellers in the world, or have been, and they have a very, very strong brand. So it's also that brand trust and brand connection. And I think brand trust is something that's going to be more important moving forward, both for destinations and products and anything. But we saw also that when Disney creates something, it means something, right? And we, as a tiny little then unknown destination, could sort of tag along with that story and be a part of that journey and just say, whatever Disney sort of come up with here in their movie, it's based on this. So experience this movie and then come and see the real thing, you know? This is what the story is inspired by. So this is what you can actually experience. And that connection and just having that huge brand that is trusted through generations and family values, the good values. You can mean whatever you want to of the big corporate Disney, but they know how to tell the story and they have some family values. So just having that paved the way for us was huge, and it became a success bigger than anything we've ever thought about. And for us, it was also very rewarding when we had campaigns and we saw little kids running around in malls going to see Santa, or in a Disney sort of village, and there was lines were miles long or hours long, and Olaf was the bigger attraction than Santa, actually. You know, so, you know, you hit some parts of that, but it was also a very, very creative outlet for us. You know, where we get to try a lot of different channels. So.
And Elena, I've got a question in from Bronwyn, and perhaps you could help answer this one. Bronwyn's interested to know what kind of job opportunities you think will be available in the future in terms of the travel industry and sustainability.
Yeah, well, I think this connection with the local is going to become the key point, and understanding the stories and being able to source as well experiences that are real and can have impact. And I think no one knows better about that than people that are already in those neighborhoods and living in those areas. So I think being able to have that creative mindset and understanding how to design experiences and how to have that impact, I think will be a big shift. And then also being able to bring the conversation together. So I think storytelling in different media sources, let's say anything that has to do with AR, right, VR, all this that we're seeing, but just more so the storyline. So being able to kind of create worlds within a world, both online and offline, will definitely also be part of what's happening in travel. And then I mean, I would also say I think business models need to change as well in the travel industry. So I think it's going to be a great time for innovation and for us to rethink if the way travel is making money with this consumption mentality, if it's one that we want to continue. And I think this disruption of the business model at the core will allow for new players, new entrepreneurs, new ways of understanding what it means. And I think that could be also a key place for people to come in. And of course, a full understanding of the challenges that we have, SDGs, everything that we're working on as a story, as a world. I think it's key to be able to move forward in that space. So definitely like diving into what are some of those challenges and specific in a local way, and how can we really think about regeneration? Because I think right now we've been managing sustainability, and sustainability is really about not causing more harm or kind of cleaning the mess of it. And I think now we need to move to regeneration, which is how are we leaving the place better? How is travel really going to be part of the long-term story of a city, of a country, in the full shape? And I think for that, you really need systemic thinking and people from all different paths to be part of that conversation.
Thanks, Elena. Now we've just got a couple of minutes left, so I just want to quickly go around and ask you to each answer 2 questions for me. Firstly, what's the one thing everyone can do when they travel next year to change the world for the better? So one thing. And then finally, where are you going to go to first when the borders reopen and you can get on a plane again? So, Hege?
I think making conscious choices, like we talked about. You can, if we have an option, and I also agree that there's so many innovations, there's so many new products that kind of come, and products that really mean something, but doing a little bit extra due diligence before you make your choice, because there is already so many good companies out there making smart choices and moving in the right directions. Nobody's perfect yet, but they're moving in the right direction. And I would probably go back home, but I also have a trip to Toronto on my schedule, to Canada. So,
cool.
Either one, Norway or Canada, one of the 2.
You're very welcome in both, I'm sure. Carmen?
I would say support local. Might sound like a broken record by now, but I think supporting from the bottom up and understanding that supporting communities that are there is a way to create a more equal and educated society that will follow be more sustainable as well. And I think I might go back to New Zealand, but that will be a long way off because that's going to be closed for much longer. I mean, I can go anytime because I'm a resident, but I will wait until it's fully open. But once it's open, I might just fly down there.
Great country, and I'm sure you will be carbon offsetting that long journey down to Auckland. Thanks, Carmen. Elena?
Yeah, I think it's about looking at the bigger picture and thinking, is what I'm doing adding value? Is it necessary? Do I need to do this trip? Why am I doing this trip? How am I going to make that place better when I'm there? Yeah, I think if you add that to everything, then you'll really be being more sustainable just by being, in a way. So I think that's that. And I'll probably, I want to go to Costa Rica. I mean, I was born there, I grew up there, but I haven't been in a long time, and I'm really curious to see family mainly, but also to see nature and that part of nature of the world with new eyes, because I've been in Europe now for so long that I miss a bit of jungle feel and ocean.
Well, Costa Rica is open. We're operating our first trip there at the end of January, so we'll be back.
Ooh, maybe I can join that.
Seats still available, Elena. Thank you very much, all three of you. That's all we've got time for today. I really hope you've enjoyed the session. I hope you've inspired everyone online to think differently about travel in the years to come. It's such a transformative experience already, and after being deprived from travel in 2020, it's pretty exciting to start thinking about hitting the road again, but in new ways that can have more positive experiences on the people, on the planet, and the wildlife that we visit whilst we're there. I'm Adam from Contiki. It's been great to talk to you all. Thanks again to our guests, Hege, Elena, Carmen. Thank you to Team Contiki who are working behind the scenes, to Rachel and Bunty for making this happen, putting this all together. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are in the world, and travel safe and travel responsibly. Hope to see you all again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.